Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing on with the My Favorite WWF LJN tournament. So I'm actually not going to be focusing on time restraints anymore. 2025, I will make that a New Year's resolution. Be more conscientious of time constraints and kind of focus on eliminating or reducing the time of videos. But right now, I'm not even going to worry about how long the video runs. If the video runs to be an hour, so be it. I've told you guys right now, I've had a lot of requests to do Hasbro review videos. And I've said it before, I am not doing your ordinary run-of-the-mill Hasbro reviews. They are going to be kind of sit back, relax, kind of chill videos. So I'm gonna kind of be like rehashing childhood memories. You know what my experiences with certain figures, right? I'm going to talk about the value of the figures. I'm going to talk about what I enjoy about them. And I'm still going to review the figures, of course, but these videos, because I'm not breaking them up, I'm not going to do, 6 figures now, 6 figures later, like I did before in my past Hasbro reviews. So there's not going to be a series 1A, 1B. So these videos aren't going to be like 30 minutes now, 30 minutes later. And you're not going to have a whole ton of viewers. I got it. With an hour, hour 5, hour 10-minute videos, it is what it is. With these tournament videos, 45 minutes to an hour per video, I got it. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy making the videos. And for those that love kicking back and watching them with me, I'm glad to have you guys. Oh, one of my viewers, initials CJM, he made a brilliant observation. And this is something I actually kind of contemplated. So, obviously, we look at figures like Bruiser Brody, already a 2-time champion in my my LJN world, right? After the first, my favorite LJN tournament, I contemplated removing him from the tournament and not incorporating him in the second tournament. He already won one tournament. There's no point of keeping him in the second tournament. But I wanted to put him in the second tournament because I wanted all my figures to be displayed. Same thing with this third tournament. Even though he was a 2-time champion, I wanted all the figures the opportunity to be showcased. So he kind of mentioned, you know what? Any figure that has won previous tournaments, kind of retire them. Put them into a sort of LJN Hall of Fame. Yes. Brilliant idea. Now, I am not the greatest at editing and... well, you see my videos. It's basically going to be something like this. I am going to make a video. I'm going to sit down towards the end of this year. This is going to be the Waddy's Channel Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And I'm going to kind of showcase the LJN Hall of Fame. So if you guys are interested, sometime in December, I am going to have that Hall of Fame special. Now, you might see a figure like... I don't know, what's a good example? Let's say Series 1 original 1984 Hulk Hogan. Let's say Hulk Hogan does not win this tournament. Okay, 3 tournaments, 0 victories. How can I incorporate Hulk Hogan into the Hall of Fame and basically retire him from participating in any future tournament? That makes no sense. He hasn't won. Why retire him? Well, simply stated, no, he may not have won any tournament, but I already know he's one of the greatest action figures ever. So it's pointless to kind of keep running him out there tournament after tournament. And I've already stated that in future tournaments, if I decide to keep this going, I want to reduce the number of figures I want to put out there. So if I keep going out and buying new customs, I want to incorporate the new customs, allow you guys the opportunity to see new figures. So, yeah, I want to showcase new figures that haven't already participated in these tournaments, and I want to give other figures that obviously have not had the opportunity to really win this tournament to progress even further. So, there's probably 6 or 7 figures I'm really looking at right now. And we've had a few different tournaments, a few different LJN tournaments. Not all of them are my favorite LJN tournaments, but they are still LJN tournaments related. So you could have a few different LJN winners being retired. I think it's a fun concept, and I'm looking forward to that video. So hopefully you guys will be interested as well. Live, I might go live again this Friday. It's a possibility. Just to shoot the shit. I really don't have any schedule or any plans or anything like that. Tuesdays, I am still planning to make the videos for Hasbro. Hour plus. I'm going to go through mint on card and loose for every single figure. So you are expecting over an hour for every video. That's going to be crazy long. So I'm not planning on putting those out every single day or multiple times a week. I think last year, towards the end of the year, I started breaking down and doing a lot of reviews. So like, I pulled out all the grapplers and gimmicks. Now grapplers and gimmicks, they don't break down by series, and that sucks. That's one of my least favorite things about them. They don't have, hey, these are figures that come out from Series 1, these are came out from Series 2, etc. So I kind of did like all the mint on card, all of the loose figures that grapplers and gimmicks released, and I kind of did a full-on review of all of the figures that came out. So I might do something like that again. Based on the sheer quantity, I might break it down into multiple videos, or heck, I might do another Hasbro type style video where we kind of look at an hour-long video looking at all of the Hasbro toys. Zombie Sailors, because they actually do break it down into series, I might do series by series looking at all of them. Zombie Sailors, I'm really falling out of love with. I don't know how much longer I plan on collecting those figures. I'm planning on doing a video for Rush Collectibles. So yeah, like I said, as the year is winding down, we are going to start looking at a lot of reviews. As we close out the year, we're going to start closing out the different toy lines out there. Some of the more popular lines. We're not going to do full-on reviews of everything, because if you look through my channel, you look through the playlist, I've already done full-on reviews of every single line you could think of, so it's pointless to redo everything. I mean, Hasbro is a different story. I've already done a full-on review of everything, but it's requested, and it's my favorite line, so I don't mind redoing it. But like full-on LJN all over again, I did it amazing. I think I did an awesome job the first time around. Unless it's something that multiple people is requesting, I don't think I'm going to do that again. And that was such an undertaking the first time around. But Zombie Sailors, Grapplers and Gimmicks, I don't think that's going to be too much of an undertaking. Original San Francisco, because of the way that the cards, I have them on the shelves on the back, I don't want to do that again. But that could be a possibility. I got Macho Man Bendy's in. On card. That is fantastic. That just leaves Lou Albano and Brutus Beefcake mint on card. Bendy's. And Bendy's LJN is mint on card is complete. So freaking exciting. I got a million things in from eBay recently. We might do a pickup video this week, possibly. Maybe over the weekend. I don't know. Rush Collectibles, I mentioned them. I don't like their customer service. It takes a million years to get things in from them. Their response time is horrendous. Their lead time to get their products is horrendous. I've opened up multiple packages from figures I got recently. Their figures are straight trash. I know I'm a completist, but I don't think I'm going to let my OCD get the best of me this time. I'm going to look at their figures with you guys. And we're going to look at the mint on card and the few loose figures I have. Not recommending them. So we're definitely going to do Ringmasters, Rush Collectible figures as well. But that's something that we're going to be looking at this week. But Yeah, I'm probably gonna put out 4, maybe 5 straight videos of the tournament. So if not this week, it'll probably be over the weekend or early next week that we start diving into all of those videos. So that kind of gives you a heads up of what to expect. All right, guys. So as you know, as I said, we are back into the tournament and 1 video down, 9 to go. Let's see what today's matchups brings us. First matchup is the Junkyard Dog Papa Shango. And that is a good one. That is Santa Claus Hillbilly Jim. Alright, next matchup. Rick Rude Volume 2 does battle against Brutus. Those are both random treasures. Bruiser Brody will do battle. Bruiser Brody does battle against Greg Valentine. Interesting. Interesting matchup. Greg Valentine. And last matchup, of course, SD Jones Yellow versus Kamala. Alright, so I will go ahead and pull those figures. Oh my god, I have no idea where I'm going with this video. I think one matchup, I have a good idea. The others... Alright guys, let's go ahead and pull these figures and we'll get started. Alright, so first matchup... And we are looking at Papa Shango, Junkyard Dog versus Hillbilly Jim. And this is the Santa Claus version. So, looking at Papa Shango first and foremost. I've got about 3 iterations of Papa Shango. And I don't know if it's this one or if it's the Iron Sheik variant. If I had to guess, I would probably say that this is probably my favorite variant or favorite version of Papa Shango. Yeah, with the Junkyard Dog fighting pose, of course, that's got the best fighting pose. So that, of course, is going to be the highlight of the 3, no doubt. But also, I love the dead look. I mention it every time I look at this figure. He gives you like that whole Walking Dead zombie-esque look to it. It's incredible. And I think Junkyard Dog, because he was a little bit of a huskier fellow by the time he joined WWF in the early 80s or mid-80s, that's much more reminiscent to the body type of Charles, what was his name? Charles Wright. So, it's a fantastic figure. I mean, I love it a lot. And creepy, great tattoo and whatnot. The only downside I've always mentioned is like the fact that it wasn't necessarily complete. You know, with the loose, like it doesn't pop off or anything. So I assume that they probably like super glued or something. There's probably like a little metal piece or something, and they drilled a hole into the arm and probably connected the little metal piece. Probably got like a, I don't know how customizers do it, but you sometimes see a little metal pin or something that they stick into, like to attach heads to the neck or the shoulder to connect the arms and stuff like that. So I don't know why they would have done that though, because Why would you need to cut off a junkyard dog arm? It doesn't make sense. I mean, the only thing I could imagine is maybe they cut off the arm in order to have this small part to work with in order to build on the accessory, because again, the accessory is built on, but you couldn't really build on the accessory while it's attached. I mean, does that little issue, and yeah, I do think it's a little of an issue. I mean, if it's sitting on a shelf, you're not even going to notice it. Does that really affect the figure that much to a point where I wouldn't covet it to move on to another round? Because this was the figure that my wife painted, and I talked about it with Hogan and the Hillbilly figures, I'm like, man, one of these two figures could win this tournament. And the emotional attachment that you have to them because of what they mean to you, not because of wrestler, but because of who they came from. I think a lot of the time, I think the emotional attachment I have of this figure, and I'll get to it when I start talking about him as well, because of who I bought that figure from, maybe is the reason why I keep that figure around so long. But this is my wife, right? And for someone who's not an artist, she doesn't paint, she doesn't draw or sketch or anything like that. I mean, she has about as much skill as I do. I mean, clearly, she's a million times better than me, but the point I'm trying to make is, she's not someone you look at like who can like customize figures, but she did an amazing job. And I think I covet a Junkyard Dog figure better or more than a Hillbilly Jim. Like, I don't put Hillbilly Jim on my list of like top 20 LJNs. Oddly enough, if I'm using like an action figure, like if I'm sitting down, I'm doing like a Royal Rumble or whatnot, normally I will probably use something like a Hillbilly Jim, and I'll put him in at like number 1, number 2. And I will normally keep that figure in a Rumble until like number 27 or something. Like, I enjoy using Hillbilly Jim. I don't really enjoy using a Junkyard Dog because of grip I've talked about. Like, his play pose is fine, but the feel of the Junkyard Dog fighting pose is, the grip is just weird. And the positioning, I don't know, it just feels awkward. I don't know if I choose the Santa Claus figure, I feel like I would only be choosing it because it's my wife's figure. And I don't want him to move on simply for that reason. And there is another Santa Claus figure already in this tournament. One with more graphics and a built-on. And another accessory with a hat. And I know I enjoyed that one a little bit more, or a lot more, because of all those additional benefits. And if the two figures faced off, I know that one would win. Because of all of the additional benefits I mentioned. Sometimes you gotta put emotion first. And I'm gonna go with Hillbilly. Look, Hillbilly Jim ain't gonna win this tournament. I know it. No Hillbilly Jim is gonna win my favorite LJN tournament. This is a spectacular figure. One of my favorites, most definitely. But is Papa Shango gonna win my tournament? No. Making it to the third round is a nice push. Is it a fantastic run? Not really. It's an average run. If he had made it to the fourth round, it would be a great run. But I'm curious to see how far I could push this figure before I really have to say goodbye. And between these two figures, I don't want to say that this was a guaranteed, victory for either one. So I think if he squared off against maybe 3 or 4 other figures from this lot that I'm looking at, yeah, he would have lost. But Papa Shango, it wasn't necessarily a guaranteed bona fide loss. So I'm glad to see Hillbilly Jim in the next round. So this one, oh, nope, wrong one. Next battle is from Ram Treasures, Rick Rude, Volume 2 versus Brutus Beefcake. So this is a matchup of figures that may or may not have been required. So let's discuss, right? Alright, so Rick Rude. LJN original Rick Rude. Quite possibly might be the worst LJN figure ever made. Once upon a time, I would have argued that original LJN Rick Rude is the worst LJN figure ever made. In fact, once upon a time, I may have argued that the LJN Rick Rude possibly the worst wrestling action figure ever made. In fact, maybe around January of 23, I did a video where I kind of pulled out some of the worst wrestling action figures ever, which included Macho Man from original San Francisco. Basically, his hands on his hips. Horrible, horrible figure. Roughly the same figure that you get from LJN. You know, hands fused to the side type of deal. Today, I'd probably say that that's probably a worse figure. I don't know what it is about the Rick Rude figure LJN nowadays. Like, I don't hate it as much as I once did. Maybe because I really enjoy the pants of the figure. I enjoy that aspect of it. So, maybe value. And I've said before, value really should not ever play a role in how you view a figure. But maybe maybe that's a big, huge reason. I look at LJ and Rick Rude, I'm like, okay, it's a $200 figure. Worst case scenario, 100, 125. So that might play a role into my, why I feel like it's not that bad of a figure compared to like Orton, which is like a $10 figure, $15 figure. Snuka, which is like a $5, $10 figure. So I don't know. So when Ram Treasures came out with this Rick Rude Volume 2, I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand. It was probably a necessity. But I always backtrack to my same thought process. In essence, you have Rick Rude as part of the LJN roster. I would have liked to have a new character. But if you are going to come out with Rick Rude, I understand. The original sucked. You're going to come out with a better one. You have my seal of approval. But please, if you're going to come out with Rick Rude, it's got to be the greatest action figure ever. What we got from Ram Treasure was not a bad figure by any means. It was a fine, serviceable figure. But when I look at this, I look at Galoob, I look at Tom Zank, and I'm like, Tom Zank Galoob is a average to below average figure. I'm like, it is what it is. It's, for Galoob, it was, like I said, average to below average. It's nothing that you're excited about. So, pose-wise, it didn't do anything for me. And when I saw this figure, I'm like, was I rushing to go hit the purchase button immediately on this figure? No. Did I buy it the same day? I don't remember. I don't know if I got it the same day, but like most figures at the time with Ram Treasures, I bought it within moments of seeing that Ram Treasures had a new figure for sale. But when this figure came out, either it took me hours later to buy it, or maybe a day later, 2 days later. So it wasn't something that I purchased immediately. And like I said, it's a perfectly fine figure, and it is what it is. It's not exceptional. I think I still enjoy the color scheme of the original. But face-wise, hair, it's a really nice piece. Still glad to add it to the collection. Then, much later, we got Brutus Beefcake, and I don't know. Because the original Brutus Beefcake from LJN was a perfectly exceptional figure, yeah, he was exceptionally tall, then I kind of look at this figure and I make this comparison. Sorry, face was all over the computer. I'm like, this is like super freaking small. I don't know how tall Brutus Beefcake was in real life, but like I look at him on screen and he looks super tall. So Brutus Beefcake LJN's like crazy tall, and then I look at this and he's like crazy small. So like, how tall was Brutus Beefcake in real life? And it has its pluses and its minuses. Positive. Original Brutus Beefcake had a sort of what was his name? Jay Leno or Sean Penn type of look to him, right? Short haired. Where this is kind of like your mullet type. So much more reminiscent to the Brutus Beefcake that we're all familiar with. Huge upgrade. Love the rubber shears. This figure, even with, because I'm always pulling figures off the shelf and they're always bumping into them, so even with this, I'm always knocking into them and knocking them off the shelf. If these were resin, this would have broke the shears a gazillion times already, and so glad to have real shears, not that resin crap I get from everyone else when I buy their custom Brutus Beefcake figures. So, huge upgrade there. Paint scheme, amazing. A lot different than what I got with all the other 10,000 Brutus Beefcake customs. Pose-wise, very similar to what you get from original. So for those fake characters, or for those kids who had this figure as a kid, or original as a kid, you can love it because it's a pose or playability that you had and you're familiar with, or you can hate it because it's what you had as a kid and you're familiar with it and you want something different. Either way, it's still a solid figure nonetheless. All in all, I mean, I wouldn't say they're mirrored, but they're very closely resembling in that regard. Both solid figures. In this particular case, they're neck and neck to an extent. But I still give a huge upgrade to Brutus Beefcake. Is Brutus Beefcake more than a 4th rounder? Does he make it to the 5th round? I think he could. Does he make it to the semifinals in the 6th round? I don't think so. If he makes it to the last 4, I think it's going to be last 5, because with the amount of figures, I think we're going to have an uneven number. I think the semifinals is going to consist of 5 figures. And I'm going to push 3 forward to the finals. So, does he make it to the last 5? I doubt it. But Brutus is going to defeat Rick Rude. Next matchup. And this is a very comparable matchup. And it sucks that it's happening in the 3rd round. So we'll look at we'll hold them both up. So Bruiser Brody has his appreciation in my eyes because of Greg Valentine. Greg Valentine essentially started it all for Bruiser Brody, and like I said, they're basically the exact same figure, right? I talked about your emotional attachment to figures. My wife made the Hogan Thunderlips figure. She made the Hillbilly Jim figure. So because my wife made them, I had that emotional attachment to the figures. Eric, who I bought, let's see, looks like 4 shelves worth of custom figures from. At one point, his the amount of figures I bought from him trumped every other customizer by a large margin. I mean, yeah, now I look at what I got from Ram Treasures, and it looks like Ram Treasures has about roughly 4 shelves worth of customs too. So yeah, they've definitely caught up. But not only did all of these amazing customs come from him, but I got this awesome piece from him, and he was not just a guy I bought from. He was one of my best friends. Obviously, I met him on eBay, and having bought so many stuff from him, we talked online, talked over the phone, messaged. He became one of my best friends. So emotional connection to this particular figure. And that's why I always say to anybody that buys off of eBay or Mercari and stuff like that, build those rapport with people. Build those friendships. Okay? So, you don't want to sit there and just be a one-time buyer. If you can, go back and be repeat buyers, because you build those rapport, you build those friendships. People will work with you, and later on, they will give you better deals. There have been a lot of things that I bought from Eric, which he probably would have sold to somebody else for like $100, $150, $125, and I probably got from him for like $75. So, it benefited me greatly. Friendships. So that's one thing. Emotional attachment to this particular figure. That's one reason I enjoyed this figure. Number 2, I'll probably go back and forth between these 2 figures, because these two figures mean a ton to me. So I've said before, Greg Valentine, not exactly your top-notch figure that I was overly ecstatic about. It's a very simple, plain figure. How many times have I harped on this figure where it was just, why doesn't this figure ever win my tournament? It's a very simple, plain figure. That's why. It's not a boss man. It doesn't have the flashy colors and the overall design. I think that's another thing that keeps Big John Studd from winning my tournaments in the past. Big John Studd almost defeated Bruiser Brody in the first tournament. Bruiser Brody was literally that close to winning the first tournament. I was a millionth of a second from naming Big John Studd my winner in the first tournament. And just like that, I decided to change it to Bruiser Brody. So, and it's because of some of the added attributes that Brody has. So, and those attributes include what Greg Valentine has. When I got Greg Valentine, I had no interest in the figure. Greg Valentine, I didn't watch him in the 80s, of course. I mean, born in 85, I wasn't watching him when I was 1 year old, when I was 4 years old, right? So when I watched him in the 90s, he wasn't no superstar in my eyes, but just a regular average wrestler. Nobody impressive. His figure didn't do anything for me. He was just a regular average guy, a regular average figure. But I wanted to do this tournament, and I wanted to play with these figures. I wanted to have a feel for them because I didn't have these figures. And he was the most enjoyable figure I could possibly use. Yeah, Hogan and Studd, I could talk about those two. realistically, yes, those were probably my most fun, but I used Greg Valentine more than not. Why? Because I knew Hogan and Stud were playful, and you're going to get a lot of use and enjoyment from them. I wanted to use figures that I didn't know you were going to have fun with. That's why figures that you know suck, like Roddy Piper, you know is terrible. You know Jimmy Snuka is terrible. You know Iron Sheik is terrible. So you're going to keep them in your tournament, your Royal Rumble longer. You're going to use them more often because you want to get more of a feel for them to see if your opinion changes, right? And so I ended up using Greg Valentine like crazy. Most utilized figure. And suddenly he became a top 5 favorite of mine. First tournament, round 5er. He had a strong case that could potentially have won that tournament. But he ended up getting tossed out. Why? Not necessarily because of name recognition, because in the first tournament we weren't going off nostalgia or anything like that, but because, simply put, he just didn't have the design, color scheme, or anything like that that I covet. I know I'm going to choose Bruiser Brody in this matchup. I have to choose Bruiser Brody. Not necessarily for nostalgia, not necessarily because I always choose Bruiser Brody. He is essentially a Greg Valentine. But I will probably keep bringing this up. I mentioned the last time I talked about Bruiser Brody, and I said that pretty much every time I talk about Bruiser Brody from this point forward, I will bring this up. So I will continue that trend. When you see Bruiser Brody nowadays, people are taking Greg Valentine, they are chopping off his head, and they are putting on Hillbilly Jim. They're putting a Hillbilly Jim head onto a Greg Valentine. They're maybe putting little dots on his chest, making it like little chest hair, maybe putting some like little blood stains or something. I'm like, in my opinion, they are devaluing what I have right here. So now I've got this perfect, expensive prototype figure, perfect head sculpt of a real Bruiser Brody, perfect build-on vest, perfect boots, accessory, everything that I covet in an action figure, and this figure has everything. And suddenly, I'm seeing all of these customs, and I call them shoddy customs, but in all honesty, if I didn't have this figure, those so-called shoddy customs, I would probably buy them myself because I have this awesome piece, they're in comparison, they are shoddy. And now I look at this and I'm like, man, I can't feel the same way about it anymore. So now when I look at my 10 figures that I've gotten in recently, figures that I've talked about should be tournament winners, like Boss Man and Kamala, possibly Stud, even the Series 1 original Hogan, that never really had an opportunity to win in the past. Does Brody still win this tournament after taking the first 2 tournaments? It's not written in stone anymore. But we shall see. Bruiser Brody moves on to round 4. Last matchup. This one sucks. This is probably going to be the toughest one of the video. Kamala versus SD Jones Yellow. So SD Jones, we'll start off with him. I've said before, SD Jones, the last time I ever did a top 10 countdown, I rated SD Jones as my 10th favorite LJN. Scratch that. He's not a number 10. He's got to be in the top 5. He has to. In round 2, SD Jones Yellow eliminated the Series 1 custom of Ichiban Hogan with the new Ichiban Hogan head. That new Ichiban Hogan head, Series 1, that I got from Wrestling Rider, huge candidate to win this tournament. If he wasn't eliminated, probably could have won this tournament. And I think I actually mentioned in a previous video that if SD Jones Red squared off against that Hogan, I probably would have put that Hogan over. But I have such a strong affection for the yellow variant of this figure because the yellow is just eye-popping. The yellow shirt really means something. I think both red and yellow is still in this tournament, if I'm not mistaken. I think red shirt is still in round 3. I could be wrong. So, if yellow shirt loses right here, it wouldn't be the end of the road for SD Jones. Based on my video, you guys already know that Kamala isn't my 10. Based on that same video, you already know that any one of my 10 could be potentially eliminated in this round. So it's not like he's a guaranteed victory, has the opportunity to potentially win, or guaranteed opportunity to win. So if SD Yellow could beat Ichiban Hogan, does that not guarantee, though, or at least give the strong implication that he could also wipe out Kamala, though? Kamala and the Hogan figure are essentially the same figure, right? I mean, within reason. I don't know where my SD Jones figure normally end in these tournaments. I'm guessing usually around 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, something like that. So, I mean, going to the 3rd round, I mean, I still think that's a terrible, terrible run. Anything less than a 5th round, I think is a bad run for an SD Jones figure. But if we say a 10 going up against, let's say, a 4. The thing is, whenever I grab action figures, like when I pick these guys up, right? And I'm kind of like just goofing off. Like I'm not actually sitting down and having wrestling matches or anything. But when I just pick the figures up and I'm kind of like goofing off, SD Jones is always the one figure I go to kind of like have a match. Again, I'm not having matches. I'm just picking them up, kind of like just type of deal. So you just know how much of an affection I have for SD. And usually I don't mess with the yellow shirt because I think about value and I think about paint damage. So I always mess with like the red shirts. Man, this is difficult. No backstories, nothing like that. I have to go with Kamala, right? I mean, it's the only logical answer. I mean, not only has Kamala made it to the semifinals and finals in 2 different tournaments, but literally Kamala is the one figure, if not Big Boss Man, Kamala to me is the one other main original LJN figure that I feel like has the best opportunity. Yeah, not even Big John Studd. I mean, it really boils down to Kamala, maybe a Big Boss Man. I think those are really the 2 biggest figures with the greatest opportunity to dethrone Bruiser Brody. I think there is a good opportunity that one of 2, maybe 3 customs in this tournament could potentially win. But if they don't, I think Kamala or Boss Man are going to be the ones that I need to get as far through this tournament as possible, because if Bruiser Brody is finally going to lose, these are going to be the 2 that these are going to be the guys that I feel like are going to be the ones that are going to do it. So Kamala, he is going to defeat SD Jones, and like I said, a 3rd round run is not a good finish for Yellow Shirt, but it is what it is, guys. And yeah, that'll take care of this video. 46 plus minutes. Still, man, I had I enjoyed filming this video, so hopefully you guys got a kick out of it as well. And I will come back down here, if not later on today, film another video, get that up, posted for you guys, scheduled for release. And until next time, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and talk to you then. Take care, everybody.